Hey, welcome everybody to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Craig Domann. Today we have Kalen Cotto. Is that right, Kalen?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about Cotto, tomato, Cotto, and you are an expert in helping businesses get unstuck. Small businesses, you have a military background, so you work with a lot of military organizations. So I just want to welcome you to Pro Mindset today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So we're going to go on a ride today. So if anybody out there is listening and they want to ramp up their business, they want to identify what's holding them back so that they can grow, expand, all those types of things. Kalen is your person. Kalen, why don't you share with us your story?
Gosh, I mean, if I go back to the beginning, my parents were business owners. So they owned a janitorial services company. So I kind of grew up with my parents in a more, hands-on type of job. So I grew up with my mom and dad working weird hours. She was able to be home with us during the day. And then in the evening, they would go out and clean different office buildings. But I watched them grow it from home cleaning, switching over to office cleaning, and then growing that up in the Providence, Rhode Island area. And so I had seen them, with their struggles and trying to advertise the different things that they were doing. And I actually think that my journey was a little bit accidental. Like I thought I might always own a business of some sort, but I think it became more of like, I need to do this when my military career was pulling me away from my newborn. And then eventually it ended up going through a divorce, and that business kind of kept me going. I feel my journey is a little different. I think I talk about that in the book a lot, just like you can grow a business even when your life is a little bit chaotic in the background. But you just have to have that mindset that you're not going to quit, because eventually you'll figure it out and you'll do well.
Okay, so what are the 2 or 3 fundamental principles that you organically learned to help you grow your business and that you utilize to help other people grow their businesses?
I try to keep it to just 3 really simple things, just mindset being one of them. No matter what happens, everything is figure outable. Another thing that I always emphasize is really nailing down basics. So I think a lot of people, you hear always the term like figure out your avatar, figure out your offer, your unique value proposition, all these buzzwords that everybody learns. But actually, how do you do that? And how do you help people figure those things out? And I think sometimes we overcomplicate just really basic ideas when we're trying to grow, because we're looking at everybody else who's doing something similar, and we think we have to have the level that they're at already laid out and things like that. And I feel like people should just start with one thing, serving one group of people with one thing. And then after you kind of get all of that in place, just really figuring out how to navigate and like figuring out how to, I don't know, maybe psychology is not the best word, but navigating the business as you hit pitfalls. Things don't always go right. Sometimes you get hired to do a job that you thought was going to be fairly straightforward. You realize it's not. It's going to be a lot more complicated than you thought it would be. Did you price it correctly? Do you have to have a conversation? Or maybe you just blew a deadline. Those things that just happen in life, how to navigate that. So we broke the book up into those 3 chunks, actually. So mindset first, and then the basics of a business that are kind of the boring basics, but they're mandatory in order to get something going, and then navigating all of that after.
Okay, so let's start with mindset. What are the principles of mindset that are the most favorable for someone's future success?
I would say resilience would be my top pick. We kind of approached it in a roadblock sort of way. Like, do you have these 6 roadblocks and how can you overcome them? But I think regardless of what the roadblock is mentally, it's almost like we make these almost like, I don't know, like when things get hard, we kind of try to figure out how we can go back to what's comfortable. I kind of contradict myself a lot, because I'll say, it's okay to go back into the workforce. Like if you're struggling and as an entrepreneur, you don't have to feel embarrassed to go back and be a waitress for a season, or go back and get a full-time job for a season. Don't forget that dream that you already started building and going back to that later, because that resilient mindset where maybe I have to shift for a minute, but completely quitting will ensure that you fail. And so I try to tell people it might get hard, it might get a little wonky, but you are in control of how you spend your time. And if you need to get back into a paycheck, that's okay. But just don't drop that thing that you started. You just might need to pivot a little bit. Or you just need some cash in the door until you can get back to it. So I think resilience and a never give up mindset is kind of the biggest thing.
Okay, let's go through those 6 roadblocks. What are the most common roadblocks that people run into as entrepreneurs that everybody that's listening that's an entrepreneur has probably dealt with in some way, shape, or form?
Self-doubt is the number one. Thinking that I've never sold, XYZ product or service before. And so who says that I can do it? Even though you may know from life experience, people have given you feedback that you're really good at helping with taxes or helping with financial planning or whatever your gift is. But you have self-doubt over it, thinking that you may not be able to accomplish your dreams because you're limited by that thing in the back of your head says like, you're just not qualified, that imposter syndrome. So I put self-doubt there. The second one is overthinking your support system, like thinking that nobody's going to help you. You have no help. There's no family, friends, other people to help you either fund it or grow it. And you can't do it by yourself. It's just going to be too much, going to be too much work. You've read too many ChatGPT prompts and you're starting to overwhelm yourself. The third limitation I have is it's a physical thing, but it's also mental, saying that you don't have enough money, you don't have enough, like the lack of support comes in human form, but the lack of money is a mindset as well, because you're trying to figure out, you're getting the cart before the horse. You haven't tried to sell anything yet. How do you know that you're not going to have money coming in if you haven't tried yet to go out and do that thing? And everyone always has some way that they can save a little bit and build out a strategy for it. The fourth one I say is time. People always say, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. There's a lot of people wasting a lot of time on all sorts of stuff. Social media, getting into arguments in the comments and things like that. You can probably block out some time in the evenings or on weekends. I was a single mom when I really went full time with my business, and I had a 3-year-old daughter. So, sometimes I had to move a meeting around, or sometimes I had to cancel meetings altogether because something was going on. My daughter's sick. I had to take her to the doctor. You have to, life happens, and she wasn't in school yet. So I had to work around that stuff. And then the time that I had to work on the clients versus the time I had to get more business was limited, but you block out and schedule things. If you know your routine, you can try and schedule around those things. The economy is a big mindset thing, like seeing all the negativity, like, oh, who's our president? Are they making the economy bad? Is that going to affect me down the line? If I start this business right now, it's definitely going to fail because look at the inflation going on and look at this and that and all the reasons why now is not the right time economically in general. And then a fear of failure is another one that I put as number 6. Just the self-doubt, I think everyone sort of has a little bit of it, but I've met people that are actually petrified. Like they have this business idea and they put a whole outline together, or they started doing a business plan and they just are freaking out. They're like, you know what, after talking to you, like I can see where I can do step 1, but like what happens when it gets when I have too many clients, and I have to hire somebody, or what happens if I don't know how to do something? And I think that can be paralyzing. And then if I could add a 7th one that people normally will mention when they get very stuck is they'll say, well, someone else is already doing this. So who am I to start a business doing the same thing? And I think that's a pretty common one as well. Other people are doing XYZ service. And so the world doesn't need another one. I'm just another person doing marketing or whatever it is.
Okay, so those roadblocks seem to be, from my perspective, starting blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Like before you can get out of, like when you run a sprint, you're in the starting block and you can sometimes freeze. These things seem like they're in the starting blocks because once you're going, self-doubt can still be there and fear of failure can be there, but some of these other things kind of go away because it's like your motion creates momentum and momentum makes you see things differently. And so let's talk about, how do you help people with self-doubt?
I think we just try to break down, where does that come from? We try to find the root of it. Why do you think that you can't do this? What have people spoken things over you or said things to you that have killed your confidence level? And why do you think you believe that about yourself? What have you done in your life and career? Because a lot of these people that I'm working with are a little bit older, right? They might already had a corporate job and they want to start a business, or that. Sorry, I feel like I'm frozen. Am I okay?
Good. Just keep going and don't worry about the picture.
Okay.
When it uploads, it will correct.
So I think I deal with people more I'd say a lot of people in their 40s and 50s who've been just have thought about having a business for a long time, and some that did start and they've been hitting roadblocks and they need help. But I think for the most part, because they've had some life experience behind them, we can talk through like what do you know for sure that you've done well that people have said to you, wow, like if you didn't help me with that, I would never have been able to do the thing that I wanted to do. A lot of times it's not really even about the service that you're providing. It's about how you're doing it and who you're serving. And I think people just get very much like they start to make this checklist of things that can go wrong before they even try. So I feel like the self-doubt and fear of failure do go together. Self-doubt's one of those little nagging things like imposter syndrome.
One of the things that I have seen that helps a lot with those two areas is when you lock your purpose and you know why you're doing what you're doing and you know the impact that you're going to make on people and you know how it's going to serve the best interests of the world, how it's going to help a certain group of people. And when you have a choice, focus on the purpose or focus on the fear, focus on the purpose or focus on the doubt. And when something is about you or about me, it's different than it's about we or about a group. And so that naturally seems to dissipate a lot of doubt, unless there's something in their past where they were told they were not enough. Maybe a parent, maybe a sibling, maybe a teacher, maybe a coach, whoever it might have been. And they allowed that coach or that teacher, that person of authority to have the power. They gave up their power because they're going to literally believe some teacher that told you when you were 17, something, and now you're 37 and you still think that's true. It's not true. It never was true. Let's jump into the basics. How do you get people to narrow down the one thing for to serve one group with one thing? Because most of us brains are all over the place.
Yeah.
Like even in this interview, my brain is all over the place. So I'm trying to lock in on one person on one topic. So how do you help people when they have all these great ideas?
It's really more practical than anything else. We list them all out. What are you really good at? And there's a term that I never use, but I know a friend of mine loves this term. It's called ikigai, that whole concept of like, what are you really passionate about? What are you naturally good at? Those things, and you write them all down and you try to figure out through that process what you can monetize and then what things, and then you think from a practical perspective, how much money are you looking to bring in? How much of a profit do you think you can make on things? If it's service, can be a little bit easier depending on the service. So if you're doing what I'm doing, like a marketing, in the beginning, it's you and your software expenses and basic things. There's not super ton of overhead. Like if you're a freelancer, a lot of freelancers tend to want to grow an agency or something like that. Like if you're in my industry. And so in the beginning, it's just you meeting with clients, selling them on yourself and your services. And so for overhead, really you're spending just your time. So figuring out what your time is worth and that kind of thing. So I think for me, because we work primarily with service-based businesses, it's what service can you provide to who? But then when you're writing your ads and when you're writing your email copy, talk to that person. Just like you and I are having a one-on-one right now, it's easier for people to feel like you're having a one-on-one with them when your copy does that. So we try to look, if we look at a website, even for like a larger company that's already established, we'll be like checking to see if there's any we language, and we try to change that so they are talking to a specific type of person in their verbiage. And I think it's easier said than done when you're a very creative person and you have a lot of good qualities and things that you could do. But if you start with one and you really figure out how that sales funnel is going to look or what that process will be, it makes adding more onto it easier later.
How do you coach people to overcome adversity and obstacles and surprises? And they had money when they started. Now they're out of money. They're not getting the responses from their target audience that they thought they would get. They might even realize that their target audience isn't really their target audience.
And that's common. A lot of times I tell people before you invest X thousands of dollars into a website or a brand or whatever, figure out what that minimum viable product is for yourself. And there are ways we can do that. Your mindset, like you said, that what you mentioned is totally right. When you say that forward momentum, right? It can sometimes melt away these issues. But forward momentum is not building 15 different logos and trying to figure out which, because there's activity that we could do that actually results in nothing. And I think that's one thing that if we don't get a grip on our self-doubt, we can be busy and say, oh, I'm doing really well with my business. I just made this landing page and I just built this logo and I just, did all of these busy work things that really wasn't focused in on like what's important to bring money in. And that's really at the end of the day, even if you have the most incredible purpose, I want to make money so that I can feed kids in, low income households or do this amazing purpose filled work. At the end of the day, you have to have that money coming in to be able to do for other people. So in the beginning, selfish need to start a business was to be home with my daughter and have enough income to where I didn't have to go to a 9-to-5 job every day. And in that process, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what not to do. I learned how much I was wasting time on redoing my website again, changing color schemes and changing fonts, and it makes you feel productive, but it's not. So I know it's kind of a roundabout way of saying it, but I think when you hit a setback, it's just, you've got to realize like it's almost like free tuition. You're failing, but you're not really failing. You're learning. And then you pick apart each step. Just break it little pieces. Do you think that your ad copy needs to be adjusted? Should we test 5, 6, 7, 8 different iterations of ads? Should we test different imagery or video that's going along with that? Should we figure out what you're like? Maybe you're getting all of these sales calls being booked on your calendar, but then when you get on the phone with someone, for some reason they don't buy. So what's happening on that piece of it? So that's the thing with marketing now. It gets so complicated. People get so overwhelmed because there's AI tools promising you that if you just sign up with that one tool, they're going to solve all your marketing problems. And you're going to be a millionaire in 2 weeks. And then you sign up for this thing and you realize it's actually not the case. So I think people just, number one, realize that if you're building something that is going to last a long time, it's going to take a little bit of time. Like getting rich quick is not the way to build a legacy for your family. For me, I wanted to have something that my daughter could own someday or work with me someday, or she could have it. She could not, if she doesn't want to do it, great. But I wasn't thinking get rich quick. I was thinking like, how can I work from home and build something over time that's going to feed my family, potentially grow bigger. But I didn't even have like major growth plans in my mind. I just thought anything that sets me back, I'm going to figure it out. And I'm not like that resilient mindset where you just say, this is what I know I want for my family, even if it's just me and my daughter is the family, just so that I can be with her. And I thought, that's all I accomplish is a income enough to cover bills and to be happy and to be able to travel and do little things I want to do. Like for me, that was enough. For other people, it's not. But if you have a huge vision, there's going to be more roadblocks to work through. So I think that you have to set your mind to the fact that you're going to do it.
Okay, Kalen, you've brought up resilience half a dozen times and talk about how do you improve it and how do you how do you pump it up and how do you, have it, see it evaporate?
That's a good question. I don't think I've been asked that before. Resilience, I don't know the actual dictionary definition.
No, I'm not looking for what they're looking for your definition of resilience.
I feel like resilience is when life knocks you down and you just don't let it keep you there. So if I could go through the list, my mom passed when I was young. If we want to get into that part of it, she passed when I was 14. That I watched them grow a business until that age. Then I watched my father fall apart and lose most of that business. And he kept about $40,000 a year in revenue going, but that's like all he could handle at the time because he was just a mess and he had 2 teenage daughters. And he's like, what do I do? I was a mess in my own right. I survived a suicide attempt. I woke up the next day, not sure how I did wake up, and thought, okay, I guess I'm just going to keep waking up. Like in my head, I just thought I'm just going to keep waking up. So I either make the most out of my time because in my head, I thought, well, there's a reason I'm still here. So I guess I have to keep figuring this thing out. So then over time, like joining the military was a complete, not even a thought in my head until it happened. But then when I did that, it was like I was terrible at it. So I kept trying and trying and trying. My first divorce, that could have taken me out and caused me to go in a bad direction. And I thought, okay, just like one more thing that happened, we're going to dust ourselves off. And this is what I'm just going to focus on my career. Then I had second divorce happen. And then for different reasons, right? Like when you're young, there was, drug addiction involved in the first scenario. And I did not really want to have that be my long-term life, to have all of that mixed into really young marriage. And Iraq and Afghanistan had just kicked off. So he had come back from Iraq and he was not quite the same. And so I feel like all these different things, and my deployment to Iraq happened. I came back and really just stayed mom and business owner for a decade. But I felt that through every single thing, even losing all my clients the first time around and rebuilding everything, going back into the workforce for a couple of years, I just knew that this is what I would always go back to. And so for me, when I see somebody that has a lot of hardship that they've walked through and they've overcome, I just think, gosh, they're such a resilient mind. Like they probably can do anything that they dream up because they're not going to let anyone kind of sidetrack them. There's instances where I haven't been resilient. I feel that negative self-talk is
Hold on one second. One second.
Yep.
We're not going to move on. You weren't. Walk us through what was going through your mind before you attempted suicide,
Mm-hmm.
and how long you planned it, and what was your method.
Mm-hmm.
Just do those three things.
Okay,
How
so
long-
gosh, I want to say probably 6 months. I was thinking of different things, and I had already had my driver's license, so I had to be 16. But I was definitely thinking, what are like the least painful or the fastest things? You know, you go down the list and you're like, if I drove my car off here, or if I hit a wall, and then I'm like, no, that would be really painful. And what if I didn't die? And then it would hurt. And then I know these are very, very silly things to think, but when your mind is kind of set on in that place, you don't really think outside of what you should be doing every day. You're kind of thinking like how and when and all that. So I ended up, I don't know how I found this information out. I don't even know if it was an online. It was around 1998 when this happened. So I don't even remember what level of internet we even had. It was nothing. It was like dial up maybe. But I know I found out from someone or somewhere that you can take aspirin, and you can take a certain amount of aspirin and it will make you go into some sort of medical thing and you potentially just don't wake up. And then so what I did was aspirin, and then I did like this nighttime cough syrup, like 2 or 3 bottles of that. And I thought for sure with the aspirin and then like adding in the cough syrup, like it'll be like enough to where I'll just go to sleep. And then I woke up the next day and went to school. So I feel that, I don't know, I guess that's pretty much how it happened.
Okay, so what made you hopeless that you thought that was the best move, best alternative?
I think that I felt like I could not control my situation. So my mom passed. At the time, my father was not like handling things well. Today, we have an awesome relationship and we've talked about all of this very briefly. I don't think him and I have even had this conversation, to be honest with you, but he definitely is aware of it. But I mean, he was tough too. You know, he would get angry, and you could just tell he wished he could just put me and my sister in a box and like move on with a new life, because everything that associated with my mom and us was painful. So his mouth would just spout off, and it would be, you just never knew what was going to come out. And so, you know, he had said a couple of harsh things like, I wish you weren't born, like those level of things, to where I thought, well, what if I wasn't here? You know, his life would be easier and I would be with my mother, which is what I thought, because wherever she is, well, and I wasn't a Christian at the time, I am now, but back then I thought wherever she went to, I'll just go where she is, you know, in my little 16-year-old brain, and I won't bother my dad and I'll be fine. Like, it'll be fine. And just not really understanding the ramifications of all of it. And then prior to me doing that, also what happened about a year after my mom passed away is like the one best friend that I had in high school, he ended up getting hit by a drunk driver and he died. It was like every time I kind of connected with people on like a deeper level, they would pass away or something weird happened. Not everyone, obviously, but my track coach committed suicide around the time that I was thinking about it. And his method was to take something, and then he went in the swimming pool and he drowned. So he like took medication, passed out, and just had himself in the pool so he would drown. And unfortunately, his teenage daughters had found him that way. So and they lived right on my street as well. So I don't know I don't even know how they are now, but as soon as I could, I moved away from that town and all the stuff that was going on. But I knew that once I had woken up the next day, I knew like I would never try that again, you know? I felt like I tried it. It didn't work. I'm going to move forward.
Okay. So how old's your daughter now?
She's 15.
So what have you done, if anything, to make sure that she doesn't feel like you felt? So she didn't have the thoughts that you had. So she or her friends don't contemplate doing what you tried.
Yeah, her situation is probably similar in the way that her dad hasn't really been around too much, but like my biggest thing was always letting her know how much we value her, and how much we like love her. And, I have got remarried 2 years ago, and she grew up just with me for the majority of the time. And she would have visits with her dad, and he'd come visit every once in a while, or she would fly out there to visit with him. And I think that's been the biggest challenge, is making sure she knows that she's wanted, and making sure she knows that, she has a huge life ahead of her. She can pick anything she can do or that she wants to be. And keeping her busy. Like, she really wants to go into film and wants to go to film school and learn how to, do any kind of video. It doesn't matter what it is, but she's into production right now. So we have her doing production at church, and she found one of the guys at our church owns his own professional film company. So she may intern there. Like, just keeping her, like, it's rare to know what you want to do when you're that young. I didn't. And so she just loves it and really wants to pursue it now. And so she signed up for it in high school. They have a tech class. So really, that purpose thing that you mentioned, I didn't have that in high school at all. I had no purpose. I just thought, we live, we do work, and then we die. And like, what's the point? And now I definitely feel the opposite way. But I think for her, she kind of knows that she wants to tell people stories using video, and she thinks it's the coolest thing. So I think that's the difference. She has real interest, and I've exposed her to quite a few different people just through marketing. She's met a lot of my clients. They know her, and she's been to our meetings when I didn't have a sitter. All my clients from California have met her because she's been to a meeting or two. And so I think she's been able to see kind of people building their own dreams from scratch. And I think she thinks that's pretty fun.
So here's my challenge to you, is to be 100% sure that your daughter knows how you really feel, so that she never goes to where you went. And with the resilience thing, circling back to that, we need to figure out how to help people develop it, grow it, expand it. We all need it, because we all deal with obstacles and adversity. We all get kicked in the pants and, knocked down, so to speak. So, like with your clients, I think one of the best things you could do is, find out what's got them knocked down now, because something's knocking us down at all times.
Yes, that's true.
Right? It's like you get, let's just take health, relationships, finances, career, take 6 or 7 big time items. One of them's struggling. There isn't a planet that's got it all figured out all the time. So you might need resilience in your finances this year, but next year you might need it in your health. You might need it in your relationships, because during your financial crisis and your health crisis, you neglected your relationships. So now your relationships are on the ropes. But it's like that concept of showing and teaching people how to be resilient, especially your daughter and my kids, because social media tells you that everything's great all the time, and then you have a bad day.
Or if you do want to go down,
nobody's having a bad day. Everybody's having a day. The day, great day for everybody. Baby, they got engaged. They got married. They went on this, just like super freaky, like, vacation. They've just bought a brand new car. I could go on and on and on. It's like everybody, we should change it from social media to everybody's having a great day.
That's true.
Every day. Every day. And if you're not having a great day, you use a filter and make sure everybody has a great day.
Filters work.
I haven't used one, but hey, I hear they do.
I don't use them either.
So how do you help people? How can you help people build their resilience?
I think that's honestly a part of just constantly checking in with them. We usually have meetings at least once a week. And a lot of the times it's like 10% marketing talk and 90% what's going on to cause us a roadblock. And even in a large organization, I have clients that have, large teams, and it's, struggling to get traction in one area with a team member too. I mean, it's not just solopreneurs that are having like these, as you well know, since this is your business, that people think, oh, well, I'm just some little whatever, but it doesn't matter how big or small you are. We're human beings, so we're struggling with similar issues. And I feel like I've so many pep talks, just talking through like, well, where do you think the conversation went sideways? And how do you think we could talk through that differently? Or what do you think, is it salvageable? And, getting them off that negative mindset, of I messed up, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, no, it's a learning process. Just wipe that out of your head. You have another day to figure it out. And so I feel like sometimes resilience is built through just getting punched in the face by life. And then you figure out, why did that happen? And what do I do to respond to that? And as long as you don't give up, I just feel like giving up is like, that's how I felt when I decided to do what I did. Like I just had zero left in me to give to anyone, myself or anybody else. And I didn't care. To be honest, when you get to that level, you just don't care. It's actually a very self-centered mindset because you are very selfishly deciding something that, yes, it's your life to do with what you wish. That's how I thought back then. But the ripple effect of not just when you fail, but when you succeed, like you have the ability to put out really positive things in the world. And at that time, I just didn't see that. And I think when people just underestimate themselves, that resilience, it comes from failing and fixing it and standing back up again and keeping going. I don't know there's a way around it. There's no shortcut, I don't think. I haven't found one to becoming resilient. It's just slugging through things and not letting them keep you down.
Well, my definition of resilience, just based on the last 10 minutes, because my brain was going to, what is my definition? And I've been really creating it as we've had this discussion, but it's really the idea that there's hope and there's optimism. There's hope for a better way, a better day. It's like, it's just that vibe of I can see a way to where I want to go. I see a pathway to where I want to go. It just wasn't the way I took. And the avenue that I chose, I ran into a dead end, got my head beaten in or whatever it is. I lost money. It didn't land with my potential quote unquote ideal clients. But now, because of that, you have more acuity, you have better vision, you can see it more clearly, maybe what you should have did or could have did that you didn't do. But it has to be grounded in hope. It has to be grounded in, because what do people do that are hopeless? They quit. What did you say you have to do? Never give up, never quit. So those things are all married. They're all connected. And it's that concept of, like, even for your 15-year-old daughter, let's say she does an internship in film production and it's not what she thought. How does she respond to that? Does she quit and say, I'm going to go be a doctor or something else? No, you really, if that's what you're passionate about, maybe there's a different way. Maybe there's a different company, that specializes in a different part of that industry, because that industry is so broad.
It is. Yep.
So, your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. And I do think that it's different for everybody because we all make different decisions. We all have different set of circumstances. But some of the most amazing people I've met who have you would view them from the outside looking at it just so successful and having it all together and seeming like, wow, everything comes so easy to them. If you really hear their backstory, it's not really ever. It was never a straight line. They have a lot of depth, and you've probably met hundreds of people like that over your years working with different level of successful people. You can't assume, but something in them caused them to continue to move forward and do the things that they set out to do.
Well, some download that I just got was the concept of focusing on the process more than the results. And when you're resilient, you're doubling down on your process.
True.
Right? And
yep.
You can't guarantee results, but you can guarantee that if you work the process, you're going to get momentum. You're going to move in the right direction. You're going to start rebounding. You're going to start getting some little wins. And so process always starts with your morning routine. Every single person's morning process starts with their morning routine. Like this morning, I was busy. I didn't get to do my morning routine. And so I'm trying to figure out when I'm going to fit it in today, because I want to get it done today. But it's on those days when I when I invest in myself and I work my process in the sense of my morning routine, everything else So one of the things that you could do with your 15-year-old daughter is not tell her how to do a morning routine, not tell her how to have a process. Make sure that you elevate yours, because when she sees you, then you have the credibility to tell her. Or she may just start on her own because she sees that, hey, mom's doing X, whatever X is. So maybe could be as simple as walking or whatever it is, whatever your routine is. Do you have a morning routine?
We do. My husband and I walk every morning. We try to get out the door the latest 7 a.m., 6:30 to 7 is kind of when we do it. And then we have Bible study, and then we're pretty much, shower and get on with our day. And she's out at the bus at 8 o'clock. So she sees us get up early and do our walk. And I used to do that when it was just me and her too. Just get an audiobook or something to read and then do my walk in the morning. And sometimes she would come with me if she got up at the same time. And yeah, it does set your day.
It does set your day. And if you think about your daughter's going to do one of three things most likely once she gets out of high school. She's either going to go to college, she's going to join the military, or she's going to get a job. And all three of those are like, hey, throw in a hat, fake some makeup and make sure you're on time. Okay. And in college, maybe you skip class half the time. So you don't even get, you don't have a morning routine because nobody does. Okay.
Right. It's a mess. Yeah.
So I think them developing that is like 50% of their success once they get there. Okay. You have a couple speaking topics on a sheet that you emailed me, and a couple of them I want to ask you about. Okay, one of them is you you declare that building a fancy website for a business sabotages your business, especially when you're a startup. Why is
I would say in the beginning phase, yes. And then I'd say fancy, meaning you spend way too much time putting 100 bells and whistles in there, not as much time on the copy. So it's okay if you did. A lot of people say to me, oh, I've already done that. I went on Squarespace or I went on Wix and they have a website builder and I just did it for free. It's when you're starting out because you want to send people somewhere. If they want to work with you, what's your web? That's what everyone asks. What is your website? So I can take a look at what you do, which is totally understandable. But I think that, like I said, sometimes it can just make you feel like you're accomplishing something, but it's kind of like busy work because until you really get your stuff out there, I recommend instead figure out what you want to market and then get on Facebook and start testing your message and that kind of thing. And there's processes you can do to do that a little bit quicker. So if you want to create a course, or if you want to sell an info product, there's ways to test that message out prior to investing in a larger website or a brand. Because as you start seeing what people are resonating with, you can adjust like you said, you may think you know what your ideal client is, and then you start working on it or actually meeting real people and talking to them about what you're doing. And, in the beginning, I thought all I was going to do is build websites for people. And they're like, oh, well, I'm noticing all these people are using Facebook for their business. Do you post for people? Do you make content for people? And that was like 2009. So I was like never going to do social media. It was just going to be websites. And it has expanded over time because of the needs of people and what they want. And now with AI, people are throwing their own website up. But I think that, like you said, that process, like there's certain things that all have to work together to paint a picture of who you are. And with people not trusting each other as much anymore and so many like slimy tactics with marketing, I think it's better to be a little bit old school. Don't use the filters. Use your real face, speak from the heart, be authentic online. And I struggle with that too, because everything in me wants to write a script and read it to make it easier to film it so that I don't feel like I'm all over the place. But I do definitely think that it's much better to do it. There's tried and true ways to do things that I think, those things never die off. The new shiny object of AI, the new shiny object of, it's not SEO anymore, it's answer engine optimization instead. There's, all these people giving advice like, oh, well, SEO is dead now. It's like, but those search engines are pulling in the same keywords as before. So it's like, how do you structure your data better? I'm sure there's ways to improve no matter what you're doing. But at the same time, if your message is off and people don't understand why they need to hire you or what you do for them, that broken thing is not going to change unless you focus on those. And I think that's where marketing testing and all that stuff comes into play.
Okay, I just had this great idea and I want to test it on Facebook, but I need to read the book, Facebook for Dummies. So walk me through what that would look like with my idea.
So let's say, I'm trying to think of a good service that we could pick, but I could just use, I could use the website example, right? And so what we normally do, the exercise we do is we'll write down like 40 or 50 messages that we could be using to try and market XYZ thing. I can use a real example. So I had a financial, that might be easier for me. I had a financial advisor that I was working with, right? And she was saying, I want to create this lead magnet. And if you've never created a lead magnet before, it's a free downloadable thing. Download my free guide on how to do XYZ. So her idea was, I'm going to do a free download on how to balance a budget, and people just aren't good with their finances. Because on her end of helping people, she's like, most people just don't even have a budget or any kind of like tracker, and like the husband and wife are not on the same page and they each don't know what's coming in and going out, that kind of thing, right? So she's trying to solve a practical issue that she sees everyone dealing with. But on the flip side of that is also something that people hate to deal with, right? So that's why they're not dealing with it. So to get them in, they're like, oh, I don't want to hire somebody to do a budget. I could just do it myself. I'll get a spreadsheet, or I'll have ChatGPT like analyze my bank account and so what we did was we wrote down all these different parts of finance all across the spectrum of what she did. And we created these block ads where it's a blank background and just a statement about what it is. So I'd have to pull up the spreadsheet, but the most popular one and we run very, very low expense ads to these messages. And we'll put out 50, 60 ads, but we cap them at 400 interactions, right? And when people see ads, if something resonates with them, they're going to interact with it. It's just human nature. They're going to like it. Or if they don't like it at all and they hate it, they'll probably type some little mean thing in the comments. Whatever that engagement looks like, we run those until we hit the 400 engagements. They're micro tests. And we see which are the top ones that had the most activity. And then we, score that activity and we take a look at it. But what she had found is like the top 5 messages that we wrote, that ad set was everybody wanted information on how to make up for lost time when you never invested your money in your 20s. Now you're in your 40s and you are like, I have nothing invested. I don't have mutual funds. I don't have anything. Like, how do I invest now? And what do I do? What's the smartest way? And so she was actually surprised that was the top ones. And then she redid her entire strategy to focus on starting that conversation with people based on the 7 ways you can catch up if you never invested your money young. And so that was the hook that got everybody excited. And so we took those and we built out the free download, and that kind of got her funnel started to where she could book clients.
That's real stuff right there. Okay. All right, Kalen, if I talk to one of your clients, one of your favorite clients, what would their review of you be?
I just had one for me. The biggest consistent positive feedback I get is that we're highly responsive. And if they can't figure something out, they just punt stuff to me. And sometimes now they just punt stuff over to me without figuring it out. They're just like, hey, we want to do this. We don't even know how, and we're not even going to guess how. Here's like all the information you need to figure it out for us. And then we work with them to figure it out. And a lot of times they just say, you are so much an integration into our team that it feels like you are a part of our full-time staff. And I feel like for most of the people that I work with, we become really part of their full-time staff. Some of them have me on their website as a fractional person or a part-time person on their website just because they go to me so often. And then we have like a back-end team because I restructured everything. So we don't have a huge team in the US. It's me and a project manager. And then we have a group of people that are tasked out to get graphic design work done, web development done, that kind of thing. And so
If someone out there is listening and they're intrigued, where can they find you?
The easiest way is kmc.digital. It's the whole URL, www.kmc.digital. And there is a form on there that they can fill in and grab time on my calendar.
Well, I want to thank you for being on Pro Mindset today. I want to thank you for sharing the info about the 6 roadblocks, actually 7 roadblocks you talked about. We had a nice little conversation about resiliency. And I want to thank you for being vulnerable and talking about the, suicide attempt. I mean, that's not something everybody talks about, but I think it's real. And I think people can learn from that. And I want to thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.